Howdy, Migs. So this is a Reaper game. I've tried Reapers a couple of times against Nick. I've never really tried Mass Reaper on the ladder in TVT. What I find is the same thing that you mentioned in your note, is that if it works, it pins them to their base, and then you can take a bunch of expos. The idea of transitioning from a pinning build of Reapers to another pinning build of Air Terran is interesting, because obviously if you do enough early damage you can just pin them forever and take a million expos and then have so much money that it doesn't matter what happens. The problem with obviously a Reaper opening is that it's hit or miss. I mean, if he had a Marauder with concussive shells and he saw that you made an early tech lab, I'm sure you've played games in which somebody stopped this Reaper opening. I mean, it's not hard with concussive shells to just prevent Reapers from getting any kills. The cool thing about Reaper pinning is that you don't actually have to do damage with the Reapers to pin. You did 10 SCVs worth of damage, and from this point it's really almost impossible for him to come back in this game. You can see you have 900 minerals and 200 gas at this point, which is kind of ridiculously silly. What you should remember about Reapers, their build time is extremely long and they're so gas heavy that you can get a really quick expo. That's one of the things people like so much about Reaper builds, is that you can get like almost an immediate second base. So when you're pushing out, I bet the timing works out pretty decently. So you're going to push out as soon as your third Reaper is out, right? So here's one and then here's two more. And right when your third Reaper is out, you're starting two more Reapers. You got your bunker started and your base started, and right when the Reapers are getting there, come on, give me 400 minerals. So I think building this factory and this bunker is what's kind of delaying, but you would definitely have 550 minerals if you didn't build the factory and bunker. So I think as you push out with those Reapers, you should throw down a command center, and then make sure when you come in here and do damage with the Reapers that he sees at least one Reaper survive, right? Because if you're playing against somebody who went Reapers, and you know that he still has at least one Reaper out there, you have to leave a Marauder or a Marauder in a tank or a Marauder and a couple of Marines in your mineral line so that you don't lose any more to the Reapers. And knowing that you have Reapers pins him. But if you just come with Reapers and kill some stuff and then he kills the Reapers, now he doesn't have to be afraid of Reapers anymore because he already killed them. So at this point, you did a ton of damage with those Reapers. That was awesome. And you lost them all. So you need to immediately let him know that there's more Reapers out there. So that he can't just go counterattack. Now, obviously, in this game, you didn't need to because he's got nothing to counterattack with. But in general, he took his expo quicker than you, and you really didn't transition to anything off of this build. And you said in your note this is one of the first times you're doing it, so of course you'll get smoother as time goes on with the transition into Banshees. Like, these Banshees were really late. But if you're going to transition from Reapers into Banshees, you got to remember, whether you choose Banshees or Medevac tank, both of those are really gas heavy, and especially Air Terran. It's extremely gas heavy. When I go Air Terran, I tend to take like 4 command centers, because the quick Viking Banshee battle cruiser army gives you map control, and then you can just take expos all over the place. And just like a Zerg who's going for a gas heavy build or a muta build or anything like that, you just want to take expos, throw up 6 guys on gas, and then just use the command center for mules. And then if he comes and knocks down one of your distant expos, you don't even have to defend it. Just lift, lose 6 SCVs, and say haha. Anyway. So I don't know that I like the continue to make Reapers thing. You made 3, you did some damage with them, and then you can make 1 to 3 more to let him know that you still have Reapers. But after that, you want your gas to be going toward Banshees if your idea is to do a Banshee follow-up. And this command center is so late. You had like he was totally pinned in his base since maybe 6 minutes or 5 minutes. You should have gotten a much earlier command center, and you should just think about getting the command center as you do your first initial harass. Like 2 racks Reaper, then command center, then factory bunker. I don't even know if you need the bunker. So I kind of like the idea of the air transition, especially when the Reapers work so well. I would say if you get this much damage done with your initial Reapers, you can probably end the game just by doing a tank contain right here. So I would probably not transition to air Terran if you do this much damage. And this is the problem with Reapers in the mid to late game, is that this tank just kills 8 Reapers, and he's like, "Hi, 8 Reapers is $800. I'm pretty awesome." So yeah, you'll find that at some point you just can't get in to do any more damage with the Reapers, and at that point you don't want to suicide them. You want him to know you have them, and you just want to hide them somewhere so that he's constantly thinking in the back of his mind, those Reapers are going to show up sometime, those Reapers are going to show up sometime. Because if you've ever played against someone who's doing a pinning strategy of DTs or Reapers, you're just waiting for the next shoe to drop. You have to leave tanks back in your mineral line. Like, this tank is never going to move. And that's $300 and something that you're pinning just by having 3 Reapers. So as soon as those Reapers die, he gets to move that tank wherever he wants. Income-wise, obviously, he's totally doomed at this point, so it doesn't matter. But your income is quite low as well. When you're doing a strategy like this, where you have to be watching your Reapers and your Banshees, and all of the units you're making are very micro-intensive, you'll find that doing this kind of strategy is easier when you have a very small economy, because you don't have a lot of money to worry about. You only have $1,500 at 10 minutes. But you need to get a bigger economy and use it, you know? With the earlier command center, you should, on one command center at 10 minutes, you should have 37 workers, so 33 isn't too far behind. But with a Reaper opening, that should be a fast expand opening, and you should be up to like 40 or 44 or even higher number of workers at this point. If you're gonna do a starvation kind of build, you really want to get 2 tanks and a bunker up here before he pushes down to the low ground. But if you're going to do an air Terran starvation style, it's really important to get that 3rd up quickly, because just by having Banshees, he can no longer walk across the field until he has more Vikings than you. And even if he gets a bunch of Vikings, with cloaked Banshees, you can take 1 Banshee and start killing off his ground army. He scans and kills it. You just lost the $250 Banshee. He spent $270 of scan, so you came out ahead. Then send your next Banshee and he scans and kills it. Send your next Banshee and he scans and kills it, and now he's out of scan, so he has to go home. So Banshees are just like Reapers. You're pinning him with Banshees. The whole point of Air Terran is to keep him in his base. And what good is it to keep him in his base if you don't take more bases of your own? So really get that 3rd base up very quickly. As soon as he sees your Banshees, he's pinned. Show him the Banshees and then take the 3rd. So this pinning into more pinning is a very expansion-heavy style, and you're not expanding enough to take advantage of it. And obviously you're going to win just because you killed those initial 17 workers. I mean, that's crazy. There's nothing you can do to catch up in this game. So this game isn't a perfect example of it, but you'll find that sometimes your initial Reapers get 0 kills, and your initial Banshees get 0 kills. And even though you got no kills with them, as long as you don't lose them, your opponent is still pinned. He still can't leave his base. All you can do is a couple of drops, and he knows every time he does a drop that he's going to lose the medevac because you have air superiority with your air Terran. And so it's very demoralizing for your opponent to play against a Reaper style, a Reaper opening and then a Banshee air Terran kind of style. Anytime you do a pinning opening, you're playing off of his fear. You don't even necessarily need to do a lot of damage. You need to keep him in his base while your income keeps increasing and increasing and increasing. So obviously you tried to constantly be producing SCVs. I think there's just a lot of supply blocks going on, and during intense moments of micro you're probably missing SCVs. Like right now you drop down to 0 for a second, and so on and so forth. So you are constantly throughout the entire game at least going to your base and building up some SCVs. So obviously you know that you should be making more SCVs. It's just this supply blocking. You constantly supply block yourself. And you'll find that by staying like 3 or 4 supply depots ahead all game, if you watch any of Thorzane's replays, he always has this ridiculous amount of supply, and he's like hasn't caught up to it yet. And you'll find that it costs you $300 as soon as you start to get ahead on supply depots. But as long as you stay ahead on supply depots all game, then it's only $300 once. It's not $300 over and over and over and over or whatever. It's the same thing with queuing of SCVs. Same general idea. You're dedicating a small amount of money early, and by the time you get to 18 minutes into this game, you've spent $10,000 on your army. How big of a deal is $300 really? But just by staying ahead 3 or 4 supply depots the whole game, you'll stop supply blocking yourself, and you'll end up with way more workers. So that was good. I liked this style. I liked the execution. All of the battles went well. Obviously, the last battle was really pathetic. You just kind of suicided stuff into him. But at that point, you had so much bigger of an army than him that it didn't even matter. I mean, I would have suicided into him too. So it's a neat style. I like that you showed it to me. Other than to get a better economy and to not queue up banshees, I have no real advice to give. You should note that one Tech Lab starport can support 2 SCVs mining, right? 2.5. Because each SCV on gas gives you 40 gas, and this spends 100 gas per minute. So 3 guys mining off of a geyser will give you just 20 more per minute than you can spend off of this starport. So with 2 geysers, you can support 3 starports, but really only 2.5. And with 4 geysers, you can support 5 starports exactly. So if you take a quicker expo and you transition into banshees, you can go with 4 starport all tech lab and just don't spend gas on anything except for banshees, and you'll be able to constantly produce banshees off 5 starports. And as long as he doesn't get a raven and you have cloak, he can't ever push out of his base until he gets that raven. And then obviously once he starts to get Vikings, you need to get some Vikings and whatever. It sounded from your email like you've done Air Terran before, so I won't talk too much more about that. But yeah, that is all I have to say. Bye.